You imagined knights. White cloaks with a red cross, swords raised against the sun, eternal glory in the Holy Land. Forget that. You wake up at 3 in the morning. It's pitch black. Your mattress is dry straw. You're cold. The floor of the cell is bare stone. Around you, 12 men sleeping in the same hall. The smell of sweat and old leather is permanent. You don't pick up a sword. You pick up a bucket. Your job, in the first month of the order, is to clean the stables. 50 horses, manure, urine, and mud, from 3 in the morning until sunrise. Then you go to the hall to pray. Then you carry stones for the new wall. Then you pray again. There's not enough bread for everyone. Welcome to the Order of the Poor Knights of Christ and the Temple of Solomon. Welcome to the Templars. The novitiate God and blood. The year is 1148. You are 19 years old, born in Burgundy, southern France. Your father was a minor knight, small lands, large debts, a decent name. When he died, the lands went to the eldest son. For you, what remained was a rusted sword and a vague promise that God has a plan. You didn't choose the Templars. The Templars chose you. A brother of the order showed up in your village. He spoke of Jerusalem. He said every step taken in the Holy Land earned full indulgence. Any sin erased. He said knights of the order never died of hunger, that there was food, training, purpose. You signed with a thumbprint. You couldn't read. The novitiate lasts 1 year. You have no name here. You are brother, and that's it. Your personal belongings were confiscated at the entrance. Your father's sword, your mother's wooden crucifix, your hunting knife, all stored away. The order decides what you may or may not have. The rule of St. Bernard is simple and absolute. Total obedience to the master. No exceptions. Absolute poverty. You own nothing. Chastity. No women, no exceptions. Pray 7 times a day, at 3 a.m., at 6 a.m., at 9 a.m., at noon, at 3 p.m., at 6 p.m., at 9 p.m. If you fall asleep during prayers, you are woken with a sharp slap on the shoulder. If you question an order from a senior brother, you go 30 days without eating meat. If you are caught speaking to a woman without necessity, you lose your mantle. And here is the detail no one tells you about being a Templar. They are the finest warriors in the Holy Land, the most disciplined, the most feared. And the discipline that makes them invincible starts with exactly this: months of humiliating labor, controlled hunger, and unquestioning obedience. The goal isn't to humiliate you. The goal is to destroy your ego. A warrior who still has an ego is a warrior who hesitates at the wrong moment. They are not manufacturing heroes. They are manufacturing machines that obey God. The Holy Land. What no painting shows you arrive in Outremer, the land beyond the sea, in summer. The ship takes 47 days from Marseille to the port of Acre. 47 days in a dark hold that smells of rotten fish, vomit, and fear. 16 men died on the crossing. 3 from fever. 2 fell overboard in a storm. The other 11, dysentery. You stepped off in the port of Acre holding your stomach with one hand and the cross around your neck with the other. Acre, in 1148, is the most cosmopolitan city you have ever seen. You were born in a village of 300 people. Acre has 40,000. There are Venetian merchants, Genoese mercenaries, Syrian traders, German pilgrims, Jews, Muslims, Eastern Christians, languages you have never heard, spices you can't even name. The smell is overwhelming. Sandalwood, camel dung, fresh bread, dried fish, sweat. You walk through all of it without stopping. Templars don't sightsee. The Castle of the Pilgrims is 15 kilometers to the south. You march in full armor under a 108-degree sun. The chainmail weighs 33 pounds. The shield, another 15. The sword, 5.5. The helmet narrows your vision to a thin strip ahead. No Templar complains. Those who complain lose the mantle. The castle is formidable. Walls 10 feet thick. Watchtowers every 130 feet. A garrison of 300 brothers. Inside, grain stores for 2 years of siege. Water cisterns for 6 months. A forge running 18 hours a day. Your sergeant, Brother Gilles, 38 years old, a scar from his left eye down to his jawline, looks you up and down like a horse bought at market. You look healthy, he says. That is the most praise you will receive for the next 3 years. You knew how to fight before you joined. The order will undo everything you learned and rebuild it from scratch. Combat sessions begin at 6 in the morning, after the second prayer. 3 hours of sparring with wooden swords that weigh twice the normal amount, intentionally. When you finally pick up an iron sword, it will feel light. You will be faster than any enemy expects. The Templar style of combat has a name, the closed charge. 12 knights in tight formation, lances leveled, horses at full gallop, impact speed 37 miles per hour, a wall of iron and flesh in motion. No army in the Holy Land survives a head-on collision with that. The problem is, you can only do it once. If the charge fails, if the enemy scatters, if the ground is uneven, if the horses stumble, you are in the middle of the enemy army, alone, surrounded. That is why the Templars have a rule that sounds insane. You cannot retreat without an order. Even if you're surrounded, even if the brothers beside you are falling, even if you're bleeding, you do not retreat. The rule states, if there are fewer than 3 enemies to every Templar, you keep fighting. 3 to 1. You ask Brother Gil once, why? Isn't that madness? He looks at you with the face of someone who has heard the question before. Because the Saracens know this, he says. You begin to understand. The order is not building courageous soldiers. They know we don't retreat, and that terrifies them more than any sword. The fear we create is worth more than 100 knights. It is building a legend. 6 months after your arrival, the master calls the garrison. A pilgrim caravan was attacked 18 miles to the south. Around 200 Saracens. The pilgrims, 80 people, mostly women and children on their way to Jerusalem, are pinned in a valley. The master sends 40 knights. You are one of them. The first thing you feel is not courage. It's your stomach. It feels like a stone inside you. Your hands tremble slightly as you fasten the helmet. The brother beside you, a Frenchman from Nantes, 22 years old, never been in battle either, is praying, lips moving. You do the same. The valley appears on the horizon. You see them before they see you, a mass of riders in the distance. Their colors, green, brown, dark blue, against white sand. The master raises his hand. You stop. Complete silence for 30 seconds. Then the hand drops. What happens in the next 4 minutes you will never be able to describe properly. It is not like the bards sing. There is no glory, no beauty. There is noise, a noise you never imagined human beings could make. There is the smell of hot blood and entrails. The horse of the man in front of you trips and both tumble. You ride over them without stopping. Your lance breaks on the second impact. You draw your sword. You don't think. It is exactly as Brother Gil said. When the moment comes, the training thinks for you. Your body does what it was programmed to do through 6 months of repetition at 6 in the morning. When it stops, you are breathing as if you have run 10 miles. There is blood on your gauntlet. It is not yours. Here I ask you a question. A Saracen prisoner is kneeling in front of you. He is 16 years old. Probably. It's hard to tell. He is crying. He says he has a family. The sergeant brother says the rule is clear. Prisoners cost food, water, and guards that the order does not have. The order is to execute. Do you obey, maintaining the discipline that saved 40 brothers' lives today? Or do you defend the boy and risk losing your mantle? Or worse? Tell me in the comments, because the answer says a lot about you. Day-to-day life in Outremer is a different kind of war. Not the war with swords and cavalry charges. That one is easy. That one lasts minutes. The other war is permanent. The heat kills more Christians than the Saracens. In July, temperatures reach 113 degrees in the sun. The chainmail becomes an oven over your body. Second-degree burns where metal touches skin. Dehydration. The order's medical brother, yes, the Templars have their own physicians. Arab and Jewish doctors they hire because the order is pragmatic, treats 5 heat collapse cases every week. Water is rationed, 2 liters per day per man, including combat days. Dysentery is endemic. In your first 3 months, half the garrison passes through the same foul corridor where men alternate between shivering with cold and burning with fever. 2 don't survive. Brother Nicholas, from whom you learn to sharpen a sword correctly, dies on a straw bed at 39 years old, not in battle, with diarrhea and fever. Then there are the horses. A destrier, the Templar war horse, costs the equivalent of 1,000 grams of pure silver. A healthy, trained horse. For comparison, a French peasant earns the equivalent of 3 grams of silver per month. You are personally responsible for your horse. If it falls ill through negligence, you lose the mantle. If it dies in battle, that is not your fault. If you lose it through carelessness, it's over. You fight for God. But what funds the order is the most sophisticated banking system in medieval Europe. The Templars invent what you would call today a bill of exchange, the direct ancestor of the bank check and the international wire transfer. It works like this. A pilgrim in Paris has 500 silver pounds. He cannot travel with that money. He would be robbed within 3 days. He goes to the nearest Templar preceptory. deposits the money, receives an encrypted document with the amount, arrives in Jerusalem, presents the document at the local preceptory, and receives the equivalent in local currency. The order charges a service fee, small, discreet, multiplied across thousands of transactions per year, across 870 castles and preceptories spread from England to the Holy Land. The order has more money than most kings in Europe, more than the King of France. That will matter later, much later. But right now, you don't know that. You know that your chainmail needs repair, that your horse has a loose horseshoe, that the order will provide both because you own nothing, and because the order needs you operational. You are a well-maintained tool. That is the second realization that changes everything. 3 years later, you are no longer that 19-year-old boy who arrived at the port of Acre holding his stomach. You have fought in 11 skirmishes and 2 formal sieges. You have lost 7 brothers whose names you knew. You have killed. You stopped counting somewhere between the 8th and the 12th because counting doesn't help. You were promoted to full brother knight. You are entitled to 4 horses, 2 squires, and a shield bearing the full red cross. You weigh 6 pounds less than when you arrived, despite the muscle you've built. The food is never enough. There is a scar running from your right elbow to the palm of your hand, an Arab lance that came under the shield at the Battle of Basra. The order's surgeon sewed it with silk thread imported from Damascus. The order uses surgical silk because it heals cleaner, and functional warriors are more valuable than supply savings. You recite the 7 daily prayers on autopilot. The words come out. The faith is more complicated now. You don't say this to anyone. You have learned that the order runs on faith as fuel. Remove the fuel. The machine stops. You have seen what happens to brothers who begin to doubt out loud. They are not punished. Worse, they are ignored, isolated, treated as sick. Faith is not optional here. It is infrastructure. In 1187, Sultan Saladin defeats the Crusader army at the Battle of Hattin. You were not there, but you know men who were. Saladin captured 230 Templar and Hospitaller knights after the battle. He had them executed personally, or offered them to Islamic scholars who wanted to practice swordsmanship, not out of arbitrary cruelty, out of cold calculation. Templars and Hospitallers were the only warriors who could not be ransomed. The rule forbade using order funds to pay ransom. Keeping a Templar prisoner cost resources and generated no return. Releasing him meant putting him back on the battlefield. The only logical solution was elimination. Saladin knew this. The Templars knew this. That is why capture was never the plan. You store that thought somewhere deep and don't let it rise. The year is 1307. You are no longer alive. No Templar from the 12th century is, but the order continues. And then King Philip IV of France does something no king had ever dared before. He arrests all the Templars in France in a single morning, October 13th, 1307, a Friday. Simultaneously, coordinated like a military operation. In Paris, Grandmaster Jacques de Molay is arrested while eating breakfast. The charges: heresy, sodomy, worship of an idol called Baphomet, spitting on the cross during secret initiation rituals. Most of it was false, extracted under torture. The real reason was simple. Philip IV owed the order the equivalent of 2 million livres tournois, years of loans financing French wars, debts the king could not repay, debts to an institution that owned castles, armies, and more money than his treasury. The king's solution was not to pay. It was to eliminate the creditor. In 1312, Pope Clement V, who lived in Avignon, French territory, under the protection and pressure of King Philip, officially dissolves the Order of the Templars. In 1314, Jacques de Molay is burned alive in front of Notre Dame Cathedral. Before dying, he curses the king and the pope. Both die in the same year. Coincidence? Probably. You joined the order at 19 seeking glory, food, and absolution. You found discipline, controlled hunger, 113-degree heat, dysentery, and a war that never ends. You also found something you didn't expect: belonging, an identity, a purpose larger than a single life, larger than you, larger than your father's debt, larger than the village of 300 people where you were born. The Templars were not saints. They were men who believed in something large enough to die for. And when politics, greed, and a king's debt decided they were a problem to be solved, all the faith and all the swords in the world were not enough. The real power was never the sword. It was the money, and whoever controlled the money controlled even the will of God. You wore the white cloak with the red cross. You kept the 7 prayers. You never retreated. In the end, no one retreats forever.